Public goods and resource allocation, Lesson 1. So now let's turn the table for a second and focus on public choices, right? What do we mean by public choice, right? Public choices often land to a dilemma regarding individual preferences. And basically what this means is that not everyone can be satisfied at the same time. So you have, thousands of citizens in most cases, sometimes millions of citizens, right? And we have choices to make to satisfy those citizens. Now, naturally, not all citizens will be happy with all choices. So if you make a choice to make some citizens happy on one side of town, then on the other side of town, you are making those citizens unhappy. And that's the overall dilemma that we have with public choice. So policies oftentimes have to work under these conditions, and we call these types of conditions Pareto circumstances, right? Pareto, Pareto. Okay, and under these Pareto circumstances, right, we have what we call the Pareto criterion. Okay, and the Pareto criterion basically refers to a scenario where if at least one person is better off from a policy action and no one is worse off, the community as a whole is better off. Okay, and when a decision is said to have done this, right, where no one is worse off, but at least one person is better off, then that decision is said to have met the Pareto criterion. However, if a decision is made and one person is better off and at least one person is worse off, then that decision does not fit the Pareto criterion. Now, in real life, when we're dealing with citizens uh, uh, and governmental decisions in general, it's virtually impossible to meet the Pareto criterion, because at the end of the day, where one group of people will be happy, another group of people will be angry. Okay. Now, in a situation, right, where the Pareto criterion, right, has been exhausted, meaning that no other decision can be made such that one person is better off, while at least one person, while nobody is made worse off, right? That decision is oftentimes referred to as meeting full Pareto efficiency or Pareto optimality. In other words, the Pareto criterion has been optimized, so therefore it becomes impossible to make a decision such that, well, one person is better off and nobody is worse off. And that's kind of where we operate in reality. We operate in a Pareto optimal or a Pareto efficient world, right? Or, well, post Pareto efficient world, if that makes sense. Uh, all of our Pareto choices have been optimized, whether they were optimized a long time ago, or if we even had a Pareto criterion, that's not a word, a Pareto criterion-like decision. Uh, uh, the Pareto optimality is what we live up under. Okay, so basically, it's virtually impossible for governments to meet the Pareto criterion. And just as a general thought, right, the larger a group becomes, the more difficult it becomes to make a decision in general. So, for example, two of us can sit together and make a decision on what we want for dinner. However, if you ask 50 of us what we want, you're more likely going to get at least 40 different answers, right? So the larger the crowd, the larger the group, the more difficult it becomes to make a decision or come to a consensus on a decision. Now, this leads us to an exercise that Mike Sell highlights and at the end of chapter 1, right? And within this exercise, we have 5 individuals, individual A, B, C, D, and E, and each individual has an individual benefit, right, that pertains to a specific project. Now, the total benefit for that project comes to $36,000. Okay. Meanwhile, the total cost of that project is $20,000. So just looking at this naturally, we can assume that the benefits of this project outweigh the costs, right? And if we divide, right, the costs evenly, you can see that everyone benefits. So here, this project meets Pareto criterion. How do we know that? Well, look at individual A. The benefit of individual A outweighs the costs of individual A. So therefore, we have a $4,000 gain. Likewise, the benefit for individual B outweighs the cost of individual B with a $3,000 gain. And you can see this for the remaining participants in this scenario. So therefore, because everybody has a gain, at the very least, no one is worse off, while at least one person is better off, this project meets the Pareto criterion. Now, let's look at a project that might not necessarily fit the Pareto criterion. And I have steps here on the slide on how you can actually calculate whether a project fits the Pareto criterion. Okay, so here again we have 5 individuals A through E, and looking at their individual benefit, you would think that, or rather looking at the collective benefit, you would think that this is a no-brainer where the benefits will outweigh the costs. But however, when we divide the cost share, you can see that at least 2 people are losing out on this project. If I'm looking at this clearly here, individual C and individual D are both operating at a negative gain here. Okay, so again, if we break this cost share up by $20,000, right, divide it up across 5 individuals, that's $20,000 per individual. But here you can see the individual gain for each individual is as follows: $10,000 for A, $5,000 for B, -6 for C, -3 for D, and $5,000 for E. So this project does not fit the Pareto criterion because 2 people are losing. So therefore, this project more than likely would not get a unanimous vote to be done. So how can we correct this? Well, to state this simply, we basically will just divide the cost share by the percentage of their gain. And how do we do that? Well, basically, we're going to take multiply the cost share by the individual share benefit. Okay, so we take the 100,000, right, and multiply it by whatever the percent of their benefit is, right? That gives us a benefit-based cost share. So the 100,000 times 27% gives us 27,000. The 100,000 times 23% gives us 23,000. And on my slide, I have 22,523. That's incorrect. It should be roughly 23,523. That was a typo. And as you can see with the other ones, when you multiply the cost share times the percent of their benefit, then their benefit-based cost share goes down a little bit. So now when we recalculate, right, that net individual gain based upon that benefit-based cost share, then you can see how the project begins to fit the Pareto criterion.